mode. There you are. All right. Just making sure everything's synchronizing here. Hang on. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Let's see here. Well, before I get going, I'm trying to think of a good way, I think, to start off the discussion, maybe with some video, perhaps, maybe to give a little bit more time. I made the mistake of thinking that I'd already posted the notice to this for Twitter a couple hours ago, which I didn't do. I actually did it just a little bit ago. So I didn't really give people that much notice who aren't familiar with the backup mirror channel. But I also want it to be relevant for later. So I don't want this to be like something where I, what do you want to call it? Just keep saying, no, oh, I'm going to give it more time. No, I want it to be relevant later. So what can we discuss now? Sorry, something's making me itch really bad suddenly. Hang on really quick. Apologize, folks. I think it's this thing settling from the air conditioning. It keeps making my nose itch. I don't want to be rude and just keep like... So hang on really quick. Okay. All better. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was just really making my nose itch a lot. It's like, stop. Okay. Well, I wanted to talk about transmutation of negative energy, and how I define that, I guess, would be there's certain areas where I think that we all can agree, perhaps, well, maybe not all of us, but quite a few people that, you know, are just a little bit more, I don't know, that think about things like tuning into a location and that feel different in some places than others in more, I guess you could say, significant ways, which is to say that maybe they feel more magnetic, or they feel more electric, or they feel more, well, maybe, but behaviorally off. You go to certain locations and you're just kind of thinking to yourself, is everybody here on crack? You know, what happened? Is it a full moon out? You know, those kind of places also. And then there's the opposite of it, where you're just like, wow, why is it every time that I go to this location or this town, people are just so pleasant? Why is everybody so nice here? Why is even the town punk, you know, seem to be, you know, pretty cordial? Yeah, there's areas like that too, where you're just like, you know, like they really don't have serious problems and things seem to go pretty well, you know. And what makes things go one way in one location and another way the other? Is it always economics? Is it always socioeconomic factors that go into it? You know, I think certainly that plays a role, obviously. I mean, you know, there's only so much you can do in certain areas with a limited income. And yeah, but in other spots, I'm just saying that there's places where people just don't have very much, yet they feel completely fulfilled and they have abundance, yet they don't necessarily always have wealth. Because they're not always synonymous. Sometimes a person can create enormous abundance with minimal wealth. So, which is to say, like a farmer, for example, that has lots and lots of seeds, but doesn't have very much money, but does have a lot of land out in the middle of nowhere that nobody cares about. that person can grow food, so they can have as much as they need to eat, provided they have all the things required to make plants grow on their farm. I mean, they're not rich, but they've got food. They have sustenance. They have things that they need to get by, and they have things they can trade with other people, who also might need food and things. So they might go, hey, I think it's really cool that you have all those vegetables over there. I would like, I have all of this over here and I have excess of it. Do you need that kind of thing, All right. Not trying to get into that far with the conversation, but what I mean to say is, like, why do you feel bad or good in some areas? And then why are some areas seemingly programmed with negative intention or negative energetics, negative energy? What causes that? And what might be, behind it? Well, I studied this for a while, actually. I was trying to understand things like, well, by looking into what do, like, I guess you could say, darker esoteric societies that may be, death cults, for example, I guess you could say, or groups that just have practice black magic or witchcraft in general. Why is there a consistent theme with those groups with anchoring things to a specific geographic location? Why is that geographic location so important to them? What is it beyond just because? Why is it just because it's the highest point on the hill or the best place? Or, I mean, there's got to be more to it than that. There's got to be something that's just a little bit more science-based. And that's where some of my energetics research went, like part 5 of my energetics and archaeometry series. If you go into my other channels playlists, and in this channel, actually, also the mirror channel, it's part 5. So that's the only material that I really uploaded from the other channel of significance to this one here. But this channel is going to get more things uploaded to it in the future as I have the time and resources. It's been a challenge just to get everything quickly backed up from the other one, because I literally have between my live material and the ones that I've done field reporting, it's not quite 1,000 clips over there, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, over 800, I think. Yeah, maybe even over 900 clips. So, but it's not quite 1,000 that I know, because I didn't quite reach 500 on both of those sets of clips. So yeah, it's close to it. So needless to say, when you have an archive that large on a channel that I mean, I'd say the vast majority of the people that watch me haven't seen most of it. And I don't want to lose a lot of that content if something ever happens to the channel, because I've been in just such a random series of circumstances that I create backups of most of the newer material that I do, and I tend to save it. But there's been some times where I was just needing storage space so badly that I didn't always keep an original copy. So not having the archived ones from the YouTube would have been really bad. So I did get most of those done, actually. So that part's done, and they're backed up, and they have a backup of a backup and a backup of a backup. So, but online is the next phase of it that it is going to take a lot more time and resources, eventually, maybe some assistance at some point. I don't know how I'll go about doing that. But yeah, I've got to get that done. Not to share you guys my clerical issues with the channel or anything else like that. It's just, that's one of those things that I got to spend some time doing, and it just takes bandwidth and time. And then when you're being in hotels, it's pretty random, like some places are better than others, like how well you can do as far as getting all those things accomplished. The more, the lower end ones have a tendency to have more issues with the bandwidth and things like that. And just it's not a priority for them. It's just a place basically that's, you enter in there and there's there's usually a door, and there's a huge gap somewhere at the crack there or in the side where people can kind of see in. I mean, that's budget hotels nowadays. And then you're lucky if the internet works. So while I have one that's, better than average Wi-Fi connection, I've been really, really trying to, get as much of that material archived as humanly possible, because that I could lose everything if that's gone. So I had to take some time to do that, and then do the resources to make that a reality. But I'm almost done with that. So that's good. So there's progress being made. Thank you to everybody in the past that's helped out and supported the work and things like that. And I have all my contribution details down here below. Anybody who can and would like to, this would be a great time. Having some challenges right now. I really would like to get myself out of this location that I'm in and hopefully onto one of the jobs that potentially people have been, discussing with me on the sidelines, but for whatever reason, I just haven't heard back from some. I think some just don't want to do it and are feeling a little bit, timid about saying it outright, and that's okay. You guys can, if you want to. That way we can just sort of get it out of the way that you're not interested. And then I can just sort of keep you off the list as far as potential, soon to be clients, and you can just think about it in the meantime, or you can get back to me or whatever, those who reached out. And then some other things that I'm looking into are potentially case studies that I'd like to get done for studying the biofields of different people relative to environment. And so I have done some inquiry as well, just to see if anybody's interested in some of those things, just as part of a case study. There are some pretty interesting things you learn about electrical flow relative to the way these conditions and hereditary things, they go from person to person, that I was reading in some of the research reports relative to the BioWell GDV system that I've been using. I don't actually, I didn't actually get anything ready for that. So, but let's talk a little bit about negativity. And, like one of the things that I learned from reading Valery Uvarov's material from the Wands of Horus was things about the mechanics of negative energy. That was what the name of his article. And I found it really fascinating that he really took it to such a scientific level of really just helping people understand what psychoenergetics really amounts to. It was very brilliantly worded. I think I've actually read from it here online a couple times, but maybe I should do that tonight. Actually, that might be a good primer to this, because it's not really often discussed intelligently. I think the way people talk about negative energy is a lot of times like in a sort of punitive sense. They get upset with one another and say things like, well, you have bad, you're going to have some bad karma, and I'll hang on really quick. Yeah, hang on. Okay. So have to tell some folks that are doing some distant things that we're online here. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit rusty on those things, guys. I haven't been doing a lot of full metal disclosure activities, so that's just for folks that are on the outside that know what that is. It's kind of a verification layer, because a lot of times if I don't do things to tell people that I'm actually doing this, that's easy to kind of shadow ban me and make it look like I'm not on the internet in clever ways that most people don't have access to. So what I mean to say is, guys, it's called restricted IPs, just so you know. I mean, it just not speaking code or something like that or whatever. IP being internet protocol. You get placed in sort of like what's called a restricted pool of internet protocol addresses. If they want to, they can kind of the royal they, which is many different entities nowadays, because there's just so many abuses that are going on right now. It's just beyond obscene. But speaking of which, that's why I tend to laugh at those types of things, guys. It's just so beyond effed at this point in time that you have to give yourself permission to find humor in the absurdity of it, because if you don't, the tragedy of it can sink you under considerably. I know this. I mean, if the times where I wasn't finding healthy outlets to find, like, humor in certain things or to make jokes of the situation to a degree within reason, folks. I mean, some things I think we can agree on. We shouldn't be joking too much about, but if we don't give, right now, I think part of our problem in this country right now is this sort of like negativity, deadly orgone, dark orgone radiation event that's been occurring. I would say pretty heavily for a few years now. Which is to say that it seems to be a conscious manipulation of the subtle energy environment within the United States to create psychoenergetic events. What this translates to is that there would be immeasurable changes in the environment in many different locations. I would say that the cities probably have changed the most, and it had somebody been looking into this in advance, probably would have been finding it. It would be nice to see if anybody had comparison measurements from before of these sort of like more subtle energy environmental things, because my intuition is telling me that this is getting aggressive, more and more aggressive. That the efforts to change the subtle energy in the United States as a matter of weaponization to destabilize our country seems to be a focused effort by certain parties, not exclusively foreign. I would argue that many are here within the United States, and that they have foreign partners, just like it happened during World War II. I would argue that yes, America was, quote, at war with the Nazis, sure. But when you consider that America had 20,000 people show up to support the Nazis in 1939 in Madison Square Garden, one also has to ask themselves how many Nazis are here in the United States, and what a challenge this makes it to decipher what's going on in America to people on the outside, let alone to America itself. Sorry, guys. Gotta pop my back. What does that mean even, right? Because again, I don't like to talk about Nazism excessively, except to say that you guys kind of have to understand their deep intrinsic understanding of the occult, timeline manipulation, electromagnetics. The Nazi SS, the reason why they wore those big, thick leather uniforms wasn't just for style, it was for protection. And if you're unaware of this, thick leather, like those Nazi SS uniforms, provide outstanding protection against radio frequency emissions. It's literally a natural dampering layer. It's a protective layer that will actually protect you from radio frequency, excessive emissions. Why do you think that a lot of the communications, rather, people wore leather bomber jackets and things like that? Probably because a large part of it, and again, I'm not going to tell you this is exactly why, but I'm sure it contributed, at least in part, was the radio frequency emission protection that leather provides. So that's the thing that went into the length of the coats that the Nazi SS wore, and the fact that it was the Nazi SS, the high-ranking elite soldiers that knew the most about the things like electromagnetic manipulation, scalar fields, and real energy, which is manipulation of human energy as a fuel source. Are you starting to get it, folks? If the Nazis are the ones that had occult knowledge and wisdom going way back prior to 1945, when they entered into the United States, they knew all about real energy as a source, which is humans as a source of energy. Well, many of these same cults were inside America. And so there's a psychoenergetic, psychological warfare aspect to collection of bioplasma energy. God, it's ridiculous what's going on, guys. Psychotronic energy, okay, and the people that are in the Vril Society were very much part of the Nazis, and these were the most. I mean, the Vril is both male and female, but it is pretty much a female dominant group, and there's a reason why. A large part of what their role is to collect human energy, but it's also to reduce fertility within other groups. And when you understand that that's really a big part of it, that what they see their role as, I need you to really think about this, folks, that this is a battle that they've been fighting for centuries before there was such a thing as a Nazi. This is the thing I'm talking about this as far as negative energy for a reason, because this is going to help you day to day fight this. that this is about making you angry. This is about psychotronically, psychoenergetically, and I'll define those things soon. Traumatizing you in very subtle or major ways, while also aiming things of an electromagnetic or scalar nature at you in tandem. This has the effect of creating both physical stress and emotional stress. And the combination of physical and emotional stress basically creates something inside the human brain that otherwise the body would never allow in. It's effectively making you program your body with disease if you're not hip to the game. It's still effective just because of the brute force manipulation of your bioelectrical field, because it's electrical in nature. I've shown people in some footage that my spine, you can see, has considerably been darkened from this exact thing because of some of the areas that I have to spend time in. It kind of has a frying. I mean, that's why, like right now, guys, that's why you see me spinning around in my chair. It's just because it's so uncomfortable. And I'm always like cracking my back. So I have to take frequent breaks here for this reason, because the effect is the electricity is taking all the little nerve endings in the central nervous system of my spine. And it's just, I can literally feel it right now going, zoom, 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 zoom. Okay, this is real. This is real society. This is where certain relatives of mine originate from, their roots. I've been getting little light hazing electrical sensations that since I was a kid, since as long as I can remember. I would get out of a car, zap. I would go into the house, zap. I would, anywhere I went, zap, 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 zap. Lots of electricity always going in and out of me in really weird ways. And I did have really strange, just health anomalies, mostly that involved, my stomach or my ability to breathe properly when I went between different regions. Meaning I went from like the desert up into the mountains, and then that caused some issues, which is kind of normal for people anyways. But it just seemed to affect me in more than average when I had to do that. Anyways, but by and large now, I don't really have any of these things going on as far as those types of health issues. But my point is that the extraction of rill is consistent with certain health anomalies, and they're just things that kind of make your certain nerve endings coil like this. It used to be something that was more of an esoteric way of doing it, like one-to-one. You could really take subtle electrical fields, geomagnetic locations, and then it was a matter of putting certain things in another person's food, and then you eating something of an opposing metal. And then that would be what primed the pump and got one person's energy to move to yours. And now they've just taken that old process of doing it and they've modernized it with technology and made it just brute force industrial scale where they can do whole neighborhoods and get everybody going. Zhin, 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 zhin. It's a little bit like The Matrix, guys. I'm sorry to break it to you that it's really down to a movie like, starring Keanu Reeves and shit. But some of it is kind of that way. You're a fuel source, you're an energy source to these people, and that's how they perceive you. And it's horrible. That aspect of it. I'm not trying to go super negative right now. What I'm explaining to you is that if you don't understand that these people exist, they're able to call themselves all kinds of other things that you may think that they are, that they really aren't. And you may give them all sorts of credit for either being just misunderstood or being a person. How do I say this, guys? Because I know one person that does this. They've got a million different ways to make themselves look like the victim, to make themselves look like the person that's whatever, when they're actually a pretty vile human being who's done this for decades, to other people. And again, always making themselves look like the person that did all these holier than thou actions. And I'm kind of going like, really? Seriously? Like, you've got a horrible track record that never gets seen here, that we all know about. What the hell are you talking about? And, but it's that energy extraction aspect of what they're doing. It kind of keeps you quiet. It keeps you controlled. Like you're forgiving them. You're apologizing for them. You're doing all these things, for the person that harmed you. That's real in a nutshell. It creates this bizarre mind control psychoenergetic loop that takes years to break. I'm telling you, as a person that I've defended people that are that vile, not because I wanted to. It's because there is this bizarre Stockholm syndrome part of my brain that felt really, really sorry for them. And they tap into this forgiveness in our hearts, because part of it's what they do, because they get away with so many things, is they're designed to deaden our spirit. They want to deaden our sense of forgiveness and deaden our sense of wanting to partner with others and cooperate. They want that part of us to feel like, why try? Why bother? It always just turns out bad. Again, it's trying to install cynicism, and I see it so much. But what's the process that's involved with these things that are called these negative energies? Well, you'll sweat a little bit more, like right now, the neck. I mean, it's pretty bad. It'll hit you kind of like right in here. It gets really stiff and sore. But if there's psychoenergetic things added onto it behaviorally to make you stressed out, then you'll start sweating. You'll start getting angry and all those other things. And then when that happens, then yeah, the level of amplitude of electricity that exits your body goes exponentially more. Then, and simultaneously, you're thinking of all the reasons why you're angry and upset at that moment. And then what does that do? Well, since you're getting hit with something that's actually pushing electricity through your body aggressively, your thoughts become things. I want you to think about it. If you follow my research, folks, please understand this is real. That when you, at that moment, have the tasing going on to your body like these people do, then they're sucking more plasma out of you as an extractable layer. Today on Twitter, I saw people mocking adrenochrome. And here's the reason why you don't hear me use the term, guys, because what I'm telling you about, is what is marketed historically as that adrenochrome. They'll call what I'm telling you, this real energy, as extractable plasma. That's what they call it, but it's not that. So it gives people who want to be naysayers the premise through which to say, like, that doesn't exist, guys. That's just one of those right-wing conspiracy theories. Because in a way, guys, it's not really adrenochrome. It's not really what those people are buying, and it's not truly what they're consuming. What they're actually taking in is bioplasma extract, and it's an amber fluid, and it's just extractable plasma platelets that have been wirelessly removed from the body. And how does that work? Well, it requires that intense electrical signal going ding, 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 ding. And then it requires getting you a little bit pissed off and a little bit angry, stalling you, lagging you, making you upset. And at that moment, you begin to sweat. What happens with this sweat? Well, I would argue, here's what I'm telling you, folks, is when they're doing this, folks, like if you ever have this happen to you and you start sweating, okay, here's what they're doing. Every bead of sweat that comes out of you, you need to start visualizing that as the further that bead of sweat that's on your forehead, as it gets further and further away, it becomes an extractable layer of aether that they can pull into a plumbing line right underneath you into the water. So they can put in these set locations a water line, hit you with the beam, boom, 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 boom. Then I was just a matter of just keep there and just pissing you off. Then you sweat, and then that extractable wet layer that turns into fine beads that are microscopic. What I'm telling you guys is they don't go nowhere. It doesn't just go up into the clouds. It's the biofield. This is extractable material within the biofield that can be now sucked into a coil underneath you within the property that you could potentially have this being done to you in. And then the water line underneath knows how to just carry your plasma platelets through and separate them someplace. This is my understanding as a person that's done quite a bit of research on this. I've been stuck inside some of these systems with meters. So, it gets you more intellectually curious when you're getting hit with them pretty hard. You'll tend to research it and get the data right. So I can tell you nearly all of them, they have aggressive electronic fields that are exceeding hundreds of volts per meter. They always have strong magnetic fields exceeding hundreds of nanotesla, hundreds. I mean, I'm not going to try to even give you a range. I'm telling you, like, anything above 100 in an E field inside where you sleep is bad. If it's 100 volts per meter, it's bad automatically. If it's above 50, it's considered extreme. that's under any measurement. So, and those are pretty consistent standards adopted through most of Europe. As far as I don't know what the safe building standards is for like United States on any official level, or if even established one, but they should, but I think that there's a reason why it hasn't been done in the United States. Like, yeah, we covered that, right? Everybody just move along now. Nothing to see here. Yeah, we shouldn't have anything to have to do anything about excessive electrical emissions in a person's home. I would argue that you should, because anytime that happens, that could be causing damage to the grid. I would think, you really shouldn't have too much signal going into one house versus another, and then over amplifying one versus another. And then when you hear that California had these huge upgrades that were actually downgrades, it begs the question, why? You may want to look into Eric Dollard's material on that. It's pretty brilliant. If I can find it sometime again, I'll go back into my live material and see where that clip was. But he explained in detail like some of his energy projects that he works on. And that guy is almost like a Tesla too. I mean, he's just like trippy what he knows about like the way that we perceive time and space relative to what other people think. And I think he actually has some pretty brilliant ideas that deserve greater consideration, but they challenge the status quo. I was talking to somebody earlier about a person like that. It's like it's just bizarre, like how many people really do actually know what they're talking about, and they're all marginalized and put into these sort of like boxes of information where you have to find out about them in alt media, and they're relegated to the corners there, and you don't really hear much about them. And all it takes is one stupid like statement, like, well, yeah, that person, I heard that they partied a little bit, so their theory is whatever. And it's like, are you serious? Really? You're going to say that the person's theory is worthless because they partied? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if the person's like really, really out there, maybe you got to look deeper, sure. But, no, not just because they're, kind of an experimental type of a personality, But let's talk about like how you transmute that energy and what that really translates to. Like, how do you do it? Because today something like that kind of happened to me where, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It was just one of those things that I'm not going to get into because I don't want to rehash the whole thing. But it was all there, all the trademark signs of the effery and stalling and delaying and everything like that. And I was kind of like, all right, whatever. But I started feeling all the physical things, and I'm kind of like going, well, this is inconvenient, but I'm not that bothered by it. So there's something else that's going on right now, because I can feeling something going on with my body. But I decided to take that moment, and I just didn't fall into the negativity loop. I just kind of said, all right, I can't handle, or not can't handle, but I can't stop some of the physical sensations that are going on right now, because I just don't have control over the physical environment here right now. So what can I do inside my brain to challenge this a little bit, or to push back? And that's when I just kind of made the decision to not get upset about it or anything like that, or not bothered, which isn't a big deal, guys. I mean, again, people deal with crap like this every day. This wasn't a serious issue. But it was a negative thing. Like, there was people all around, and they were doing a lot of just negative crap, complaining and kind of going out of their way to be inconsiderate to others, kind of thing, like installing things. And I'm just like, really? That kind of thing, guys, and it was just like, I really didn't get why they were, like, the whole lobby at that point was like full of people that needed like assistance, and this person had got their answer, like, I don't know, like 10 minutes prior, but they kept on just going back into loop after loop after loop after loop. And it's like, they would even look back and see that everybody was waiting and needed to go. And everything was decided. This person could not do any more for that customer than had been said, but they just insisted on keeping all of us stalled, knowing that it was going to go nowhere. It just felt like a little too convenient. So I kind of said, all right, fine, whatever. So after I, I got the whole situation dealt with, no big deal. I mean, again, it was a kind of a pain, but it could have been worse. And I just figured, okay, I can tell something's going on today. In fact, oh my God, it's the 18th Oh, it's the 18th. Why? I just realized the 18th. It's a sum of 9, you guys. Every day that's a sum of 9, these things happen. Now I understand it. I wish I could explain this to you guys in more detail. If I tried to on this presentation, I would be, it's just part of the cult that does things in my particular situation. They're very ritualistic in nature, and they've got a thing about doing things in a very time fashion when it's the sum of a 9. So if it's the 9th of the day of the month, the 18th or the 27th, they always do something because it's about casting out 9s within numerology. I don't know what it is exactly. I still haven't figured this out or learned the entire ritualistic purpose behind it. It's just something that I've observed time and time again, and they've gotten in my face and just done it so many times, like relatives included, man. Like the ones that's two of the ones that shocked me. So it would get super aggressive on the days that were the 9th, the 18th, and the 27th. It would be like, that would be the day that it was like, one, I'm going to send so much through you, man, that your spine's going to shut down. I was like, I mean, it was always 18, 27, and 9. Bizarre, guys. Bizarre how that is. Anyways, those unfamiliar, I kind of survived a weird energy environment that had tasing floors installed. And I measured it. I have it on video. I can prove it. I don't like to talk about it because it's one of those negative energy events that I don't like to feed excessively. But let me tell you something about, how this all works with the, with the floor shocks and things like that, guys, because the people that did it to me, I think you need to understand the reason why they're so keen about trying it out on me is because a lot of those same people install them into floors of their adopted or children that they have that they just simply harvest for plasma. And if you don't understand that that's a thing, then you won't really, a lot of my material is going to go over your head. And I don't want to get into that topic except to say that it involves everything I just explained to you about extracting plasma, the special floor coils, the water lines that are put underneath their floors. So children have this happen to them and they're victims of it, you guys. And this is the part that I find so insidious in America right now. It's like, even if you think that people like whoever deserve it, I don't know what your situations are, guys. To me, I know they make things up about whoever to get away with doing this. So there's no real reason it's happening anymore, except for the people that are doing it are just aggressively into trafficking and doing this plasma extraction from children. And they know they're going to get caught soon because these systems are detectable. And I'm one of the people that can detect them. I'm just letting you know that, guys. That's one of the reasons why I do make appeals for my safety and trying to tell people that you really should get me someplace better and safer so that I can help you form teams to go find these systems, locate where they are, locate the way people hide them, what they're doing with them, and how they affect the minds of children, because they're blaming all sorts of other anomalies and sort of like physical and mental ailments when it's really that their poor little bodies are being over amplified with electricity and they're just being used aggressively for all sorts of horrible things beyond that. Okay? And it's breaking my heart to have to run into situation after situation where I'm under resourced and I have, no way, nobody who even cares to report to in a meaningful way, except for these people on the sidelines that tell me that every time I go and investigate, that they're keeping tabs on it. Here's what they're asking me to tell you folks. If you ever say to yourself, if this guy's legit, then why? Here's why, guys. You have to form bridges to civilian populations. I'm going to remind you of this again. There has to be reliable bridges you can form to the civilian population right now, because guess what's happening? What we have going on right now is insiders in the military do know what's happening. But guess who else knows? The FBI. Whose jurisdiction is this? The FBI. So what does that mean to the military? Can they just step in? Can they just go, Director Ray, you're not doing your job. We're going to do it for you right now. Well, in a way, yeah. Yet you better have your ducks in a row. You better have all your facts in order, because you're going to have to make a serious case that the level of corruption within that agency is so bad that it would justify a greater activity from the military, like military intelligence circles or whatever, in partnership with other reformers to just clean things up considerably. Now, this isn't some who theory. I don't follow that crap. And I'm not a person, I'm still kind of bothered, guys, that a lot of you do follow those people and you're still talking about them, even though they're offering you nothing new. They're not doing anything. And you ignored my material for 4 years while you spent all your time invested in that. And I even go back to the same biggest people that promoted that particular movement with the big letter. And I go, and I even challenge them now, kind of like going, you still not interested, are you? All you high profile people behind that movement. You're still not interested in my material now that your character has been decommissioned and you're still associated with it. Let me guess, you still don't want to talk to Gabe. You're still waiting for that character to arrive again? Or JFK Jr. Is that what it is? You want a dead president's other dead kid or whatever. I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way, guys. It's because everybody's like, they're hinging their hopes on these dreams and everything like that of when there's actually real tangible people all around you that have answers and actually can tell you exactly where it all leads back to. Do you know what's kind of infuriating about it? I'm not trying to get upset right now, guys, because this is about transmuting negative energy, and I'm partly doing that here. Some of these characters that I'm seeing everybody follow right now, I'm conscious and aware are manufactured by the companies. Some are Bell Company Labs. Some are ones that are part of Hollywood acting troops. And they're all sitting there telling you guys that JFK Jr. is coming back, that, trust me, I'm helping. Yeah, I'm helping by being as repulsive as possible. Excuse me. Just my impersonation of certain people that are helping. But you know, she helps like Ralphie helps on The Simpsons, dude. I mean, really, you're helping people that are conservative? Seriously? Okay. Now let's all create some real bridges, guys, because the ones that are in the alt media are a total joke. You know how we do this a little bit is with humor. It's a little bit by making people laugh and saying things that make them uncomfortable at first, but they know is true. And you know, and so I don't mind being that guy. I'm going to tell you straight up that some of these people are just full of, okay, that's all, guys. You know, yeah, I mean, really, oh my God, dude. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem, though. This whole thing about disappearing and returning, it's not unheard of. All right. So I'm just letting you guys know. I mean, like, yeah, sometimes people do, in fact, do the whole faking of the death thing and they put them. But the thing is, though, when they do put them back out there, they nearly always do it something very similar to what you're seeing, where it's right out in front of you. It's done in ways that hint or an obvious or whatever and everything like that. I'm just telling you, man, one of these characters in particular that keeps fooling everybody along with, I'm helping. I know that person's voice, even if they're using a speech pattern changer, and they were a corporate executive at a Bell company, a very philosophical person. They were when I worked with them, a very cool person when I worked with them, but they are not who you think. So you guys, you can all take my word for it or not, or you can follow that big letter 2.0 deception, or you can listen to Gabe and actually get some facts. That's okay. I'll let you guys decide. This isn't about any of my friends who introduced me to it. Seriously, it's not about you. This is more like, I'm thinking more in terms of like before I met some of the cooler people that I've seen lately. Like I was always like kind of challenging things within alt media or different characters, kind of going like, all right, you guys are waiting for your drops. You're waiting for your secret messages and your cryptograms and your special puzzles. And I'm a guy that's just telling you. Do you have like maybe like, I don't know, 10 minutes for me today? You know, not because I want your attention, but because I just want you to devote that much of your time that you invest in like gematria puzzles that guy puts out and, you know, telling you which direction to go this way or that way. I mean, guys, it gets to be a little bit like a person that's like, I don't know, a bad astrologer for a newspaper that doesn't really even understand astrology and just goes like, today you're feeling like somebody might be watching you. And, you know, I don't know. It just feels like it's such a thing to lead people because they need to be led. When in all actuality, you know, and it did challenge some people. I think that part's cool or whatever. But I mean, really, you know, folks, the information sometimes is being put directly to you and directly in front of you. And the thing I'm learning about that whole movement, guys, is it's part of this whole synthetic construct that's on the internet to get you roped in to their reality tunnel and away from the real information. Just please remember that. It had its value maybe in teaching you how to look some things up, and that's all cool and everything like that. But please get over it and stop falling for the next iteration. Don't you ever learn your lessons? I mean that in the nicest way, guys. They're starting all over again. And I know the people behind it because I've been deceived by their little psyop teams, guys. I don't think you get it. I can't even talk about half the things I go through behind the scenes. I've met them in face to face. I know some of them are the siblings of celebrities. They talk like them. They have the same speech patterns, the same body physiques and things like that as some of these celebrities. That's what they do to me, guys. Like I literally sometimes, I'm just letting you guys know, one of the reasons why sometimes I'm reluctant to interact with some folks is because I become aware after I've been sitting there with some of these people, like, your entire story is a Hollywood script. And I just realized that you're the sister of so and so, or I just realized that you're obviously a cousin of this actor. Why is this happening? Well, because guys, they're just not going to let me out of this reality tunnel construct that this Hollywood acting family that I've been surrounded by. I want you to think about it, guys. It's a little bit like if you're the child of somebody that is like I don't know, a steel industry magnate, you're probably going to be surrounded by tons and tons of people that know every single thing about steel. Am I right? If you're raised in a steel town and you're all your parents worked at the steel mill, their friends worked at the steel mill, their friends' friends and their friends' parents worked there because it was the main employer in town. You see where I'm going with this, man? It's like you're always going to be surrounded by people that knew about steel, worked in steel, and were surrounded by it. In my particular case, it's people that had secret Hollywood connections. And so they hid them from the general public, which creates the perfect cover to basically do psychological warfare, both in foreign countries and on domestically. And so speaking of like transmuting negative energy, yeah, this has been a big challenge of mine, folks, that I'm not getting, I'm not getting as many, sincere inquiries as I would like. So, and I have no problems with people that are just checking in. And if you want to like be friends and things like that, that's cool. That's the reason why sometimes like a couple times I've gotten upset here in my live streams and just said like, look, I want the love family cult and other groups that are like them. Just don't send me messages and don't bother trying because I'm tired of it. Now, if you're a reformer and you're a person is trying to get away from that, you'll be open about your past and where you've been, then yeah, we can have a conversation. I'm not going to judge you just because you were surrounded by some wicked cult your whole life. That ain't your fault. But, you got to tell me. You got to like explain it to me. Like this is something that happened to me and I want away from them. Because I'm telling you guys, a lot of people want away from these people. And the way it works in the United States is these people are so subtle about the way they do it. There's almost no way you can really attribute like some type of actionable court thing to keep them away from you. It's hard to explain. They'll show up in different iterations just pretending to be a different person, and it just turns out to be another relative of another relative that you just never met. I mean, guys, it's just I wish I could explain it in more detail. I will to people in private because it's just I'd have to name names and I can't really do it that explicitly here. That really became obvious with that whole thing out there in Portland with some of those recent shootings, because the latest Portland shooting was in the neighborhood that I lived in. And everything to do with it is encoded right down to the location it happened to being next to an Oddfellow and Rebecca Lodge. And a lot of my research is about how the real society that I just told you everything about sucks human energy, hides out in the Rebeccas and the Oddfellows. Then the latest shooting was involving, what was it? Zachary DeLong and Zachary Del Ray or something like that. But they both had Z-Del. Interesting. Z-Del Long. Z-Del Long. See, if you just to like see his badge, because they always just put the first letter of the person's first name. They don't put the full name. If you think about it, this police officer who was placed in our police office, if you were to read his police badge across, it would have said Zedel Long. Zedel long. That's something to think about, folks, especially if you know who owns barges and who's owned barges historically in Seattle and Oregon. And you may want to look deeper into their proximity to organ transferring hospitals like OHSU, Oregon Health and Science University, or I think something like that. Yeah. And, you know, there's a tram that takes things up to the top. And, you know, if you know about the history of Portland, you know it has a long, long history of Shanghaiing. And if you know that there's a certain barge owner with a name that sounds a lot like Zedel Long, the police officer that was involved in the shooting, that might tell you something. Especially because a lot of my research leads to this family. So the other part I thought was curious about it was that Zachary De Long spells Rydell in the middle, Rydel. So on top of there being Zedel, there was also Rydell, as in Rydell High. Rydell High, for those of you who know movies and movie musicals, was where Grease was done. And it's so strange this all occurs about the same time that I sang Grease as part of my acapellas. So, you know, guys, that's got zero F all to do with me, but I'm not unaware of the mirroring and the law of reversal nature. What I'm explaining to you guys is what they're, if it is what I think it is, this is classic ritual magic. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. And if you don't understand that mass resonance manipulation is effectively in structural psychology, what it really breaks down to is industrial media strength, black magic. That's what they're practicing with these, I don't know, whatever these things are. You can call it what you want to. Whether what happened out there was real or fiction or part one or the other, all I'm telling you is it stinks to high hell as far as like what it all translates to, which makes me think, what's the incentives then for creating an event like that? What was its purpose and who's going to benefit from it? People are destroying that town, so I don't want to get into detail about that. I'm telling you that it used to be a really beautiful city. And I'm just, look, whatever they're doing, I know how to do it better. That's all I'm going to tell you. And without hurting people and without destroying monuments and faking shit. But I know what they're doing. So if you want to know how that works, it would be way easier for me to be in a private environment and put on a whiteboard for you, honestly, because I could explain the whole thing. But I will say this, everything I just explained to you about Zedel Long, the barge, okay, the barge owner, everything to do with Shanghai. Remember, guys, Portland's a Shanghai culture. Shanghai in Portland was started by the ports, the ships, the barges. The traffickers have always had connections to the ships and the barges in Portland. Don't you find it interesting that the officer involved in the shooting, if you just read his name across his thing, would say Zedel, and that's the name of the major barge owner in Oregon. Moreover, folks who are a little bit more crafty with their research may want to look deeper into the other companies owned by said family. Just saying. Hey, by the way, did I tell you guys that one of the people in that family nicknamed me, yours truly, Guacamole Gabe? This very rich family, one of their petty little bitch ass little I don't know, redheaded stepchildren, whatever the hell he is. He's not redheaded. I'm just making a joke there. Sorry to all you redheads, because I think red hair is a beautiful thing. So no worries there. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to use that term there, but yeah, you know, there's that old phraseology, right? So I apologize, guys. But yeah, this person has a vendetta against me. That's the only reason why I'm letting people here on this public forum know. They said it to a person that I used to be very close to, It was a firsthand witness. She told me to my face that he called me Guacamole Gabe. Dude, you're gonna really regret that when this all gets revealed, like what the hell's going on out there. Because we all know that company that you ran down there on Thompson by Thompson and Kirby. Like, I've got so much like Google Earth footage of your monstrosity vehicle parked at all these places that you allegedly don't own, but are close to things that you used to own, but then they allegedly get transferred to somebody else, but then you're still parking there in that vehicle, according to the satellite footage. Yeah, I'm that crafty. I'm that good when I do my investigations, dude. So sorry to everybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but as far as transmuting negative energy, trust me, this is very effective, because I'm sure said person right now is kind of going, yeah. Oh, dude, I would love to see this person's, the look on their face right now and the way that they're stomping on tables and shit like that. It kind of makes me smile a little bit. In fact, I can kind of feel the energy kind of flowing towards me a little bit. It's a little bit like Donnie Darko with that thing that's like that funnel that goes out, except for this particular douchebag who's been like trying to go out of their way to torment me pretty considerably for years. It's really not working that way this time. In fact, this time they're getting kind of nervous. Aren't you, Rosemont Seneca? Oh, did I say that? Did I say Rosemont Seneca? Did I say Rosemont Seneca? I don't know. Maybe ask Officer Zadell Long. Oh, yeah, guys. We'll get Portland back on track. It's going to be a beautiful city again, I promise you. It does not belong to those people. They're not going to win. It bothers me, you guys. It bothers me. I don't like seeing places like that that are so beautiful. Did I tell you, how many times have I told you this? There is a national forest inside the city of Portland. That means you can literally be like at a place where there's like tons of cool like bars and old theaters and things like that. And you're like 22nd, like 21st to 23rd is this really cool kind of hip area. Okay. You just go to the very end of that in the Northwest District, go down the hill just a little bit, all walking distance from where all that is. And there you are at this park entrance, which is filled with trails that'll take you through a national forest. Literally, you just walk a little bit in and you cannot hear a single car. You don't even know you're in the city of Portland, yet there you are inside a major city, a major population center in America, and you're walking among some of the tallest trees you've ever seen, and it's quiet and it's peaceful. And, you can see why an area like that, they would want to win for the dark energy. You know what I mean? It has so much going for it. It has so much geomagnetic energy and so much beauty and so much like natural, whatever. It's just like to freeze it with like this like petty, aggressive, nonsense, this anti-fertility, anti-life, anti-everything energy is just so beyond ridiculous to me. If they weren't so effective at being tragically good at it, I would find them ridiculous and funny, because they're just so comical. Some of these people, guys, I'm sorry, they're just so open for ridicule. It's no wonder. The reason why, guys, is because of the occulted nature of what they're doing. And so they create all of the social justice issues around pronouns and everything else like that to prevent you from pointing out the overall ridiculousness of the occulted nature of the codes that they're communicating through these characters that you're supposed to just accept on faith is whatever. And I'm just telling you, like, this latest round of people that are involved with like the fires and the shootings and everything, I'm like, these people are all using aliases, guys. These people weren't born with these names. And if they were born into an occult family. And that's why they have that name. End of story. End of story. These major profile news stories, I am not buying that they're going down the way they did. Then once I understood, because I've had intuitions that some of these ones that were like officer citizen involved shootings were really clever ways of a criminal police officer and a criminal citizen of basically creating an event that gets one allegedly in jail, which he then just proceeds to disappear, or maybe he hangs himself but doesn't really, and then he goes off, gets facial reconstruction, starts the crime up somewhere else. The criminal, well, everybody thinks that they're dead now. Maybe they really are. It could be another way of cleaning that person up as evidence or whatever. The point would be, though, guys, is to clean up a track record of two dirty people and get the entire public going like, Yay, police officer. Yay, black person that got shot. In either case, you're rooting for the wrong person. They could have been business partners before this whole thing was staged. Does anybody understand that yet about what's going on in America right now? That's all I'm saying. Like, please at least consider it, that you might be fighting for that everybody's wrong and everybody's right simultaneously. See, but they're pushing all your buttons on race issues, on gender issues, on LGBTQ issues, and getting everybody confused. And who is this all benefiting, really? It doesn't benefit the left. It doesn't benefit the right. You guys pull out of that paradigm. The faster you do, the better off we'll all be. Everybody just got to forget that nonsense. Seriously. It occurred to me that that might be why I'm drawn to the song Purple Rain suddenly. I think there actually might be something psycho. Here's the beauty of it, guys. You want to talk about transmuting? I'm going to tell you about transmuting energy, because this is some love. I'm going to talk about love. Let's talk about love in a real way here. This is what I think is actually happening right now. I think that there's people out there that didn't understand what I was thinking. They're like, why is Gabe talking the way he is? And a lot of them were a little bit, I guess, more in the blue when it comes to the purple within the colors of belief spectrum, I guess you could say. We agree that blue within this country tends to be applied more towards the liberal and the Democrats, and then the red applied more towards the Republicans and the conservative. Why it got that color coding, I have no clue. How that all originates, I don't even want to speculate on. But when you combine red and blue, there's no doubt it creates the color purple. And so it occurred to me that one of the things that was going on during one of those elections, the election cycle, when Hillary came out with her purple thing, and all these other people were coming out wearing purple. I'm like, why are they all coming out wearing purple after they lost the election to Trump? Because to me, it almost seems like I felt like what Trump might actually be capable of accomplishing, but didn't quite do it. Not through his fault, I think, as much as the media just trying to stop it. I think he actually was very effectively, in meaningful ways, guys, at a more high level way, was merging ideologies in this country, because it was effective with me. I think it was effective with other people that I knew. I think you found that a lot of people that historically were raised conservative did begin to actually become warmer and more understanding of people that were not like them, in ways that I think that were I found pretty inspiring. I could not believe how many people that I saw that were on the conservative side that were advocating for groups that I never thought that I would see them do very aggressively, and more so than the ones that historically you would expect to happen from the left. That's when I knew there was something really bizarre going on all across the board, where I'm like, I have everything. I never once bought into the notion, guys, that all these conservative people were bad, because I just was friends with too many of them, and we all got along, and we just accepted that we had different ways of looking at things. But I think this whole thing with the purple, with me at least, is that there's all these people, and I think this is when I was experiencing those rainbow events, when I was doing those things on the coast. That's when a lot of people that were close to me historically were going, oh my God, you guys, I think Gabe actually kind of knows what he's talking about, and he's not just crazy. They and mind you, guys, I've been telling people for about 2 or 3 years, like, I'm just going to have to look a little bit nutty to some people, unfortunately, until they catch up to what's happening. And I'm just going to have to forgive them and not be too, I told you so. I didn't want to be that way, because, it was kind of like that when I didn't understand things entirely about timelines and how, communication systems really truly work with brain to brain communication, and that there's a lot of things that can just simply transcend space and time in ways that most people don't understand. But they're not non-scientific. They're not non-tangible things. They actually have things that are parameter based, meaning to say that you can dial in this frequency, you can be in this environment and tune in more readily, you can be next to a water line and tune in more readily. There's all these factors to psychoenergetics relative to telepathic communication and the ability to sort of just send messages brain to brain. Okay, I mean, it's a thing, guys. And so when I talk about transmuting negative energy, I haven't even gotten into maps tonight, but that's all right. We'll get there soon. Understanding that the moment you what I would ask you to do is, now that we've kind of gone like an hour of discussing it to death as far as like what it really amounts to, what happens when you experience that moment where you were just placed into great stress? Okay. Especially those of you right now that have like people that rely upon you perhaps for your energy signature. I'm going to tell you that if you have relatives that are ill right now, that and I know some people that do, so this is good advice for you. When somebody goes out of their way to place you in a trauma situation, and you've been just dealing with a situation connected to one of your loved ones, I need you to understand the cybernetic nature of what's potentially happening to you in the spiritual war sense. Please. I'm not saying this to alarm you. I'm saying that if you're already intuitive, if you already intuited that some of these things feel a little bit too deliberate and timed at those moments, you're not wrong, I don't think, personally. And here's what I think is going on, because it happened to me too, is that they're taking advantage of what's going on inside here. Thoughts become things, and creating the energy event so that you will actually provide a pathway of negative energy to the person that you're thinking about at that moment who may not be well. I don't want this to alarm you. I want you to now understand what you're existing in. If you didn't already, I think you do. And to take those moments, especially to say, okay, I know what they're doing. Brilliant. Okay. Not brilliant because it's awful, but find the brilliance in this. This is when they're going to push you in a little bit at that moment. I'm letting you know, to get you stressed. And if you succumb to it just a little bit, this is when you really have to say, like, program your mind at this moment. Definitely. I know what's happening right now. And you have to almost like start to visualize the energy of a little bit of this, like, like they're pushing you into the dark orgone spectrum, and that if they successfully put their thumb in you a little bit, which they can do just through the physical things. I'm just telling you, even if you just get a few beads of sweat while you're waiting for something, that's enough. Seriously. And especially if it's when you're focused on that person. And this is why you have to make that time. Like, as soon as you get out of that moment, as soon as you're out of there, the first thing you have to start doing is putting yourself in the exact opposite mind state as the spiritual component of that war. And like I said, like, learn to find certain things that are traumatizing funny. And that way, when you walk away from that situation, then yes, you've already started to train your brain into going to laughter as its natural response. Then you get the endorphin, which is a chemical response. Now you're going to be taking the Dark Orgone Radiation spectrum that just plunged you down into. Now you're just like, it got in there all gunky. Now the laughter literally goes like, it like goes, it's like a fountain of that crap and everything. But guess what? Now you've sort of cleared out all the clogs and everything. You've opened up this pathway, which normally would have been anchored with the, I'm worried. Now I'm stressed over this. Now I'm stressed about this, and I'm worried about them, and I'm stressed about this, and I'm worried. No. Just please. They've been doing this to me for so long, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I needed this to be, I figured I'd just say it to everybody. Because it was happening to me, especially at a time when somebody close to me was ill, that I really wanted to see survive. And the people that did it to me, I know what their motivation was. And to think about it, now, yeah, like today, I know what happened. Like, everything changed energetically the minute I made the decision, like, because I was like beating in sweat. I couldn't believe like the physical aspect, because mentally I didn't feel that stressed. And I have some stress factors right now that are considerable, but I've learned to just sort of go like, okay, look, this is one thing I don't have a lot of control over, this type of thing going on right now. So I just know the answers aren't going to arrive at me if I sit there and go. If you think about it, if you're wincing like this, just think about what that's doing to your chakra right there, what that does to the frequency of your brain, just the frowning of your eyebrow. I mean, that's literally, it's making it to where the answers aren't going to arrive. You can't push the signal out. It's not arriving in. You're just closing it all. You're closing it all. And you're not hemisphereing properly. And this is one way where once you take that event and you program it with laughter, I'm going to say that before they were trying to get you anchored to the thought of worrying about somebody, and then on top of it, stressful over a situation. If you can now take that situation and kind of go like, no, 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 no. What I want right now is I'm going to transmute this situation, and I'm going to take this laughter and this laughter emission, and that's going to be the gunk that whatever is affecting my loved one with dark orgone radiation spectrum right now, whatever this stress event is, that is going to be the Dawn soap that gets all of that oil off of the oil soaked bird that is my sick family member. You see, they're well, but right now they're covered in this whatever. And I'm going to use this event right now to go and to pull all that off, because I think if you're nothing but like going, I just focus on positivity and prayer all the time, there's a little bit of spiritual bypassing there, because you're not really addressing that you're actually concerned or worried about something. There's something that's really powerful about turning your concern and your worry, the minute it turns into that and it begins to become a thought form, to just really, because you're doing best for your own mind, and you're literally beginning to send positive orgone radiation that travels. I mean, if this relative of yours is 20,000 miles away, it'll reach them. Not to the same degree as being closer, but the point is that you can literally send them healing energy in a way that's actual and real if you can consistently stay within a more healing state of mind, and a more positive state of mind. This is why I'm always trying to make appeals to guys. Like, if you knew the kind of miracles that I could work when I'm kept in a positive state of mind, when I feel it, when I'm healing, when I'm relaxed, I'm just like, I walk up to somebody and I can just hold on to their hand, and it, like a Parkinson's. I'm telling you guys, my uncle, you know, I don't even like to talk about it because I feel like I could have done so much more. Because my mind state when he was still alive at that early on, it was so positive. I was glowing, and I was just going through this miraculous experience. So when I held on to his hand, this is when I was going through the Codex experience. Those unfamiliar with my material, I had this really weird download of material that was very esoteric, and I just felt really glowing for a few weeks, And when I saw him, I could just hold on to his hand, and he went from having severe Parkinson's symptoms to just speaking clearly, a simple touch. It didn't even have to last very long. And just being in his presence. And I started to understand how one person's energy can affect another. That was my first exposure in a way that wasn't just like, this person's annoying to me. You know what I mean? Like, there's that kind of this person's energy affects mine. But there's a whole nother one when you yourself are emitting something that's positive and healing and creates a sense of wellness. Once you know that you can do that, I would hope that would inspire you to want to do that as much as you can, because it did me. And then it was just a matter of like, please don't, I don't ever want to be any other way. I don't want to be upset. I don't want to be angry at people. I love the way this feels right now, and I don't want this to end. I was so happy that I had that effect on anybody. And it was weird. It's almost like at the moment I realized this about myself, that's when a whole bunch of people close to me swooped in to say, that's not happening. Go away. So what's the larger battle, you think, guys? You really do have to think about this when you go through these events, that you have to transmute the energy immediately. You have to change the event immediately. Don't let yourself get stuck at all. The best of your ability. I mean, even if you just have to sit there and fake laugh, because it'll still get the endorphins going until you know why fake laughter kind of works for you. The same reason why electromagnetic pulse will prime you into stress. Fake laughter can prime you into real laughter. It can start off a little bit phony and everything like that, but you might get yourself there the natural way, maybe just from the absurdity that you're fake laughing to make yourself real laugh. That might be all it takes. It just occurred to me that that might be it. You know, if you think about it. I think I'm going to fake laugh to make myself. In fact, think about it in that goofy voice. I'm going to fake laugh right now to make myself real laugh. And then maybe that'll make you real laugh. And then, endorphins activated, positive thought forms are reacting. And then you can start sending healing energy to a person that sort of whisks all that oil off that it began with. The worry that was there before, take advantage of it. You have to think about these as cybernetic links. What were you thinking about right before the stressful event? Now whisk all that oil off, whisk all that dark orgone radiation off, because it's really what it is. And it can work. Seriously. Look, I'm telling you this because I've struggled a lot, with negative energy and trying to understand like the mechanics of it. So speaking of Uvarov's article, yeah, trying to understand the mechanics of negative energy. Like I came from a long engineering background, even though I don't have an engineering degree. I spent 20 years doing technical and engineering work. I had the title of an engineer without actually getting educated as one. And it wasn't, I did what I mean to say, guys, it wasn't like a misuse of the term in the classic sense. I actually did design things, so, to me, an engineer is somebody that does design principles. So I think it was very basic engineering. Yes, but it was engineering. So, and I would say I was, out of the 20 years in my technical career, I would call about 10 of it engineering and the other 10 was technical or sales. So, but I'm not sure why I even brought that up. I'm sorry I got distracted with that, but it's just to say that something about the mechanics of negative energy matters to me when a person can put it to an engineer that designs cell towers that way, because then I can say, wait a second, I think I understand what they're saying here, that there's things that affect subtle energy fields and that no one's taking the subtle energy fields seriously, and they do exist. And that within those subtle energy fields, there's healing energies. And so if people are affecting subtle energy fields with healing energies and preventing them from being spread, then what's the benefit in that? Who would prevent it? And then it just occurred to me, and I'll get into the maps here shortly, that's why all these locations globally are kind of targeted. Like why was there a Bosnian, all those issues over there in Bosnia for years, all kinds of war and bombings and things like that. And guess what they were sitting on the whole time? One of the most, brilliant geomagnetic healing locations anywhere in the world. And some of the nicest people are involved with it. Just really spiritually minded, healing people that are so affected by it. They're kind natured and soft spoken. It's just amazing to me that there'd be such an effort to stomp on something so beautiful. But it's a consistent pattern that I'm finding with these things globally, that the places that are sort of special and have these healing energies and create a general sense of wellness, and that there's people that know that this type of energy does circle the entire earth. It will go 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000 miles that way, or 4,000 miles that way. These don't operate on standard principles of radio frequency, folks. I used to design cell towers, which means to say that the radius of the signal was meaningful. That's why when I study biofields, I want to know about, what is the radius of the signal? How is that even tangible? How do you know? I don't even really know, guys, how that number got measured. How do they know that a brainwave travels, or ELF can travel 20,000 miles around the earth, or a couple times around the earth? How do they know? They've done tests. So I heard that in Russia, they did actually an ELF test of this. This is how they know that it had some unique signature associated with it that must have made it identifiable when it reached the other side. But they literally pushed the signal out from Russia, and it was still traveling around the earth like after a year. How they knew that, though, I don't know. I don't know. but it was like one burst signal that they could see apparently recircle the Earth. And it was one unique signature, if I understand the test correctly. And you can find the things about this, you know, if you do more of the esoteric research. I'll try to find the article so I don't just keep talking about this. But it was some ELF test that happened in the 70s, and then they shut down the grid that made a reality. And I think there's still footage out there of the antenna grid where it happened from. Huge, like this massive thing that just looks like, I mean, it's like, I mean, really, really tall and has all these coils and everything else like that on it. So, anyways, so those kind of, my gut tells me that the Russians do understand, you know, these things pretty well in ways where they've learned the lessons. And I would hope that that's something that folks in America are hip to, that when I study the concepts of Wilhelm Reich or anything to do with energetics, that it's really not something that you really want to mess with at a basic level. You really should try to get your head around it in a pretty sophisticated way, measure it, you know, have some degree of measuring what you're doing, think about it in that level. That's why I really don't like to encourage a lot of like people building cloud busters, for example. I don't like that. I think it's a worthwhile concept, and I would love to be involved with doing something like that someday with a group, with people that understand bioenergetics, with experts that have been doing it a lot longer than me. Why? Because when you use a cloud buster, it works. And you should know what kind of event you're creating elsewhere when you're creating an event where you're at. Meaning to say that, yeah, you can make it rain where you're at. Where are you getting all that rain from? What are you displacing from where you're currently at or from somewhere else to bring it to where you are? You know, water and moisture, I think, are kind of, you know, like there's only so much of one versus the other. So it's like, where are you really getting that rain from if you create the clouds, you know, with the cloud buster? That's kind of what I'm saying here. And again, that may not be the worst thing. Maybe you're trying to generate crops in the middle of the desert in some place where nobody's getting food and they're all hungry. Okay, that's a worthwhile thing to do. It's just to say that you should have people working with you that may have more meteorological experience, that can trace weather events in a more meaningful way to see if what you're doing is even working, to see if what you're doing may have actually, even if it had a positive effect in the region that you're in, what if there was something that happened in a measurable, provable way in another region that was not so good? Maybe it created a flood in some river, maybe that, you know, or the opposite, maybe it created a drought for some people in another region. These are the kind of things that you should at least like be conscious and aware of before you begin it. That's all. And this became way more obvious to me as I studied the things like that Altai pyramid in Russia relative to, you know, the location in, what do you want to call it? Lake Mead, Nevada. All right. So let's get to maps here. I think my maps are working tonight. There it is. Okay. So what I thought I'd do was kind of show you guys some things that geomagnetic locations of significance, and, you know, just cool things. I figure let's spend an hour or so looking at maps around the world, because I just kind of want to show people part of what inspires my my work. Maps do a lot of it, reviewing maps and staring at maps. And I've been doing this both professionally and just as in my past, or in my part-time or whatever on my own. I've been working around with these satellite maps for I don't know, as long as they've been available on the internet, pretty much. I mean, professionally, I started working with them because in the tower industry, in the wireless industry, we all use these types of mapping softwares like Google Earth. And and so I began to really study the way that like roads are structured and architecture and just around the world. I mean, you guys ever like spend much time looking at satellite maps? I mean, if you don't, I would just say try it sometime. It's pretty cool. I a lot of times just like map like Hollywood filming locations to find out where certain things are done. And you can do things like look at the Easter Island statues. Oops. That's not what I want to do. I was trying to think of where the statues were, the figures were in like Easter Island, but that if I didn't have it already ready to go for you guys, that one may be challenging. But I wanted you to kind of look at some of the unique features they have out here, things like this, and like what actually made things like this happen. I mean, isn't that interesting? I mean, look at this. This is kind of out there in Easter Island near where all these statues are. These kind of unique mounds and what I would argue is going on here, folks, is you're literally looking at kinetic water flow. Boom, 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 boom. It almost like goes like a ramp from where the water goes out here. And so I look at a lot of these areas all around the world, and I try to ask myself what makes them special. What is it about something like this island here that makes it, geomagnetically unique? Why would people be drawn to here for what reasons? And then, you start finding these types of things and you realize there must be something underneath it. There must be something within the flow of the energy that creates these types of mounds. And then when you go to these types of areas, then you start noticing that, places like the tops of this, areas in here, if you were to go to a place like Easter Island, yeah, you would find that all these little spots like this. I don't know if you guys ever looked at Easter Island. It's pretty interesting, isn't it, though? You would notice that there's energy pockets. Boom, 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 boom. You know, geomagnetic energy signatures at all these spots. Put statues at the top here. I mean, look at that. Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't realize I had that on that. You don't want to see my big head over the maps. Sorry about that. I stopped looking at my screen to see what I was doing. I didn't realize I had. So you probably didn't get to see those features as well as I intended. I apologize. That's weird. Look at the top of this mountain. It's called Teravaca. Just trippy because I've been talking to a couple people about that whole thing involving the hill of Tara. Oh, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, that's it's something that look. I'm learning this lesson over and over again in my own situation because things are, again, they're. I'm trying to find that happy balance between hard to say, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Um, But yeah, thank you. But yeah, I wanted to show you this part here too. With like Spain's got a lot of cool things going on with it geomagnetically. Um, Again, guys, this is going to be kind of random. If you want me to look into something, just say it, and I'll take a look at it or something. But I figured I'd just kind of show you some cool like cave structures where they film movies and like ways that you can go check them out and research them. Like this is where they film Clash of the Titans. Actually, this one isn't too interesting on the roads. I thought I'd actually be able to find the cave entrance, which I may have obscured with all of my little dots. I think that's the cave entrance right there, actually, if I'm not mistaken. It might be that right there, but that's not really that interesting. All right, let's go to some place that just has some interesting roads then. Again, not terribly interesting, but for those who are like aficionados of Ray Harryhausen movies, that's kind of what inspired. I don't know what happened with Ray Harryhausen, but he filmed a lot of things in Spain, I guess, or a lot of his animation movies wound up having connections to Spain, including this movie called Guanji. I can't remember what the name of it is exactly. I have it in my collection, but I have all these Ray Harryhausen movies that have all the animation in them, you know, from back in the day. Sinbad, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, Jason and the Argonauts, things like that. But you'll notice like a bunch of these. Sorry, this is not really interesting, the Guanji thing, but this part I've shown you guys. Some of you have seen this before. This to me was super, super interesting, just the way that all the streets are shaped and things. And I've always wondered like what the hell's going on in Spain with this population of people, but like this is where a lot of the Basque population lives. And I mean, again, guys, I think you can kind of look into like the culture of a civilization relative to the way the maps look. And to me, this is kind of what makes the world kind of an exciting place. I look around at all these maps and I go, wow, I'd really like to go there. That looks so much different than what we have over here. And I love what we have here. There's all these cool things you can see here everywhere, but it's just like, you know, then I look at this thing over in Spain and I'm kind of like, whoa, look at this. So what got me started on this was the movie Running Scared. And I think I was telling you guys about this the other day because I was doing my Billy Crystal impression where it's like, oh no, we have to talk to Bilbo. And that's what this was. He had to talk to Bilbo. And that made me look up Bilbo. For some strange reason, I just looked up the name the way I heard it in the movie. And that took me to this location right here. But I mean, look at this. Look how beautiful this is. Like if you're in a city center like this. Actually, I'm going to turn off the 3D buildings. It's kind of a distraction. I'll turn them on if necessary, but it just makes it hard to load the maps. But I mean, just look how beautiful the street structure is, and the way the buildings are, the parks, the way the lines are in the parks. Look at these shapes that they make. I bet you anything that has an alignment to someplace significant too. That's the thing you'll notice about these places. Well, let me give you an example of that. A lot of times that's what these things do. They're lined up, esoterically so that you put an anchor down. If you guys want a quick lesson, I don't know if this is going to display properly. It doesn't. That's why this is why I can never do lessons on using this software, is because it doesn't display the thing properly. I just forgot that freaking streaming software. Yeah, I guess this one's probably about 270 if I, because I don't have it dialed in 100% perfect. Yeah, you guys can't see unfortunately, you can't see the ruler screen, so that's not going to help you out much. I was going to do a quick tutorial to show you how to do all the cool lines and everything like that, but it looks like I'd have to find a different way to do it. All right. I've also been looking into some of the places that Bruce Lee filmed his movies because there's something trippy going on there. I've always wondered like what that connection is to Bruce Lee and Seattle, Washington, because I guess they had two funerals. I was reading into it today. They had two funerals for Bruce Lee, and one was in Hong Kong, and then the other one was in Seattle at the Lakeview Cemetery. And I've always wondered what's up with that, the whole thing with the Lakeview Cemetery and, the Lees. I haven't really looked that deeply into it. But this is one of the areas that Enter the Dragon is filmed at in the very beginning of the movie, which I thought was pretty interesting. If you ever watch Enter the Dragon, the opening scenes, guys, Enter the Dragon is so trippy. I wish I could explain everything. There is so many clues dropped in Bruce Lee films. Whoever was involved with them at a high level had something going on with, I think, timeline manipulation, to be honest with you. And I'm really catching on to how many groups really have had access to this technology. And I think what we're dealing with today with timelines is the merging of when the technology becomes an invention relative to when it was being used. So I think we're on the cusp of it now becoming brought into fruition as an invention, but it's been getting used up until this point from the future, which was soon to be. Does that make sense, guys? Like if this timeline technology that they were sending information back to add things, to tell people to add things in movies, what year did it start in? When does it get invented? I think that we're getting close to that time when we're going to become aware of exactly when it was invented and when it was used. And then that's why right now everything's getting a little bit weird. And I know that's going to sound a little bit like a science fiction movie, guys, but the thing is, I've just learned it. Some of these movies that seem like they're simple science fiction, especially things like Source Code. Source Code really isn't just a movie. It's just not. There's something that's tangible and real that's going on within that film, especially when it comes to timelines. So that's one of the reasons why I spend some time dealing with the data from movies relative to filming locations, timelines, and what they were doing with these filming locations, because they matter, you guys. I promise you it matters. This is not a waste of time. It's not a dead end of research. It just isn't. There's a reason all those alignments exist, and there's a reason why they tapped into Masonic principles and other time-honored mystic traditions. It's just simply because the 33 thing, for example, these are all locations that'll have a 33-degree alignment globally. Enter the Dragon location does, the other ones do. So you can draw a lot of lines that are from these areas here at 33 and a third degrees, and they'll wind up in Seattle, is all I'm telling you. So there's some other connection between China and Seattle. Stargate-wise, perhaps, I don't know. But energetically, perhaps all a Stargate is. Here's what I'm going to hypothesize, guys, rather than just say Stargate. I think a real Stargate there's a human element to it, yes, but there's a magnetic location thing to it where one side is 5,400 nautical miles and it's 5,400 nautical miles to the other location. And one is the inverse of the other. For example, mountain is at 1 is lake at 2, both shaped like a triangle. Okay. So to me, that's what's happening, or what I've been happening upon with my research is that this exact thing is the dynamic. You have certain locations where, like, say for example, right here was one of them. There's a trajectory, a certain angle that you could go to from this location. I don't know what it is for this, if it exists even, where you will find an inverse of that big steep hill. If you were to go 5,400 nautical miles in X number of degrees, that number might even be 15 degrees based on what I found in another location, because that's how much it was there. You'll find an inverse of it. And I mean that like geographically, that's how it would work. Okay. So that's the thing I've been learning by reviewing maps, that you see this dynamic. And so if I didn't explain it to you guys before, let me show you what I learned. So this is like, Enter the Dragon. This has got some cool things going on with it. This really steep mountain thing, Victory Mountain. But they filmed a lot of the opening sequences for that, for Enter the Dragon there. And then some of the exterior scenes for Hans Island at Enter the Dragon are right here. See, there really is a Hans Island, even has a helipad and everything, guys. Oh, and this is when I became aware, just to show you like how this whole process works. Those who didn't catch the last time I discussed it. So I was reviewing this one this afternoon. Fist of Fury is filled with all kinds of bizarre synchronicities, you guys. I mean, this is the Hong Kong 8. Guys, again, my universe is getting more and more bizarrely synchronistic, but there's this scene in the film The Fury of the Fist and the Golden Fleece by Sean Stone, and I think Alexander Wraith is the director, and Sean Stone is the star and produced and maybe co-wrote it or something. But there's all these scenes from the movie. Yeah, so there's a scene where the guy says, but check out what he does. He says Hong Kong 8, and then look at that shape that gets made in the screen. It's a corona. And this character in the movie has this whole scene where Michael Winslow shows up to him and he starts going like, the Brooklyn 55th Infantry's got your back, Hong Kong 8. And he starts going like this with his hands and making the figure 8 over and over again. And then the characters go back and forth at each other going, Hong Kong 8, Hong Kong 8. Yeah, 55th Brooklyn, 55th Brooklyn's got your back. We got your back. It's a strange scene that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any linear sense. I mean, even during the scene, the character keeps going like, hey, man, I think this guy is Fruity Pebbles. I think this guy's crazy. I don't think this guy's even telling the truth or something like that. He goes, I don't know what he's talking about. So the whole thing is encoded. And as they're speaking in code on the movie screen, the subtitles are not matching the dialogue intentionally. So they say something different compared to what's on the screen. I think I even might have that, but you guys would just have to see it. It's hard to explain. But it was interesting to me that there's this correlation between the movie being called The Fist and the Fury and the Fist of the Fury and the Golden Fleece. Fist of Fury. Okay. And in the movie, there's this whole thing about the Golden Fleece. Like, it's like, I'll trade you, and the character in this scene says, I'll trade you the tiger's eye for the Golden Fleece. And that was another strange scene because the Golden Fleece is the object that is traded in Jason and the Argonauts, which isn't even an 80s movie. I'm sorry to go all over the map here, guys, but that's kind of like this movie I'm telling you about is like a parody of all these different 80s action movies, like low budget 80s action movies. Like, it's designed to be sort of like a silly slapstick mashup of all of them into one film. Okay. And it's just filled with all these bizarre esoteric clues that in non-linear lines that don't make a lot of sense. And just the fact that, Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son, is in it, and and tons of actors that are in movies connected close to these studios, by the way. Some of the actors that are in Fury of the Fist and the Golden Fleece are ones that appeared in the same studio films as produced films like Fist of Fury, Enter the Dragon. That would be Golden Harvest Studios. All right. But what makes this interesting is if you go to the center of the garden, a main area, this whole compound is where a lot of the scenes are filmed in Fist of Fury, which technically, you guys, is actually the Chinese connection. It's not really Fist of Fury. I think that was for Western audiences. The second one, this is what makes it all confusing. The first movie, I think, was called Fists with a plural of Fury, but it wasn't called that. We called it The Big Boss. And then part 2 was called The Chinese Connection in China, but they called it the Fist of Fury with one, no plural. Fist of Fury is the second one. See how confusing this is? Fists of Fury was the English title. No, I'm getting confused. Okay. I'm not going to go. It's not even the main topic tonight, guys. I'm going to spend an hour trying to explain which one was the English title and which one was the other one. All right. In English, it goes this order: the big boss, Fists of Fury, Enter the Dragon. But the same movies in China were called Fist of Fury was Big Boss. The Chinese connection was Fists, plural, of Fury. I can't remember what's up with Enter the Dragon. Shit. I almost had it, guys. Anyways. I'm a fan of these movies, though. There's something going on with them on a deeper level. Hey, True Seeker. All right. Oh, and those of you who are wondering, this is the Golden Harvest Studio right here. I don't know if it's still there, but yeah, that's it. This building. So if you ever want to know where all that magic of the movies comes from, that's it. That's the studio. That's their own. I don't know. That's the equivalent of like a Golden Harvest in America. Is this like their Canon pictures? Their what would be what's the big action studio picture that was like of significance here? I don't know. I can't think of any ones besides Canon pictures. It was like just pretty much specialized in similar kinds of movies. All right, pyramids. Mexico. But look how much different some of these regions look comparative. I mean, I know it's like one's a desert, one's got all the water and everything like that. But I mean, it's not just that, it's the structure of the road, just the way they do everything, you know, the shape of their buildings, the contour lines. I mean, everything about the way they build roads is different in all these different areas. And when you zoom out from it and you see the method done and the techniques, I mean, even when you're just dealing with a flat surface, like all these different regions build their roads way different than each other. It's just interesting to me. All right, let's get to the pyramids really quick though, because these are some guys that people go visit, and um, if you read into Uvarov's work, they kind of tell people like, if you're going to go to a spot like this, you better know what you're dealing with. You really should. Yeah, I get it. They're fascinating. They're tourist locations. People want to come from all over the place to take a look at them. But I think you should also, maybe keep your distance from some of them. And you should also be conscious and aware of where there was sacrifice performed at some of these locations, because that was exactly the case. And if there was trauma based, well, all sacrifice culture is trauma based effectively. That's the whole point of it. But if these were done as like sacrifice altars, like we know some of these places were, I think the exaggeration settings are on a little bit too high on this one. But what the research shows is that if any of these areas around here were at any time used as like a consistent sacrifice altar, where like blood was drained or whatever, which is what a lot of these things were designed to do in front of crowds, that it doesn't really leave the area. And that's kind of the point. I mean, it's to program the area with trauma, anchor it with the dark orgone radiation spectrum, or deadly orgone radiation spectrum. But they just didn't call it that. They weren't using those terms for it. It was just, something that they practiced as energy manipulation. And these civilizations do what the Vril does. I mean, really, guys, what I tell you about the Vril society, I mean, this is what these people were doing. Just it was more brute force, bloodletting, and direct. That's all. And what we have now is more energy manipulation to do extraction of things, but all the components of it are the same. Trauma, anger, rage. I mean, it's all part of the process. I wanted to talk a little bit about energy clearing of certain locations, and I think the best way to do that would be to give you a quick thing about the demon house. It's an article I did as part of my energetic series, and so sorry if you guys have seen that one before, but I think it's a good refresher for what I'm going to do here tonight. Let me get this one on the screen. So this is an article I did about the demon house by, oh wait, I thought I had it in here. Oh, sure. It was in here, but now it's gone. Okay, that's really strange. What is this one doing in here? All right. Hang on. I just got to do a manual search. For some reason, it's not in the correct playlist. I don't know how that happened. Hey, since it's Halloween, I want to do a quick thing on energetics about. All right, so I put this one up so that you guys can kind of get an idea of how I feel about possessions and things like that, because I do think that possessions can occur in people, meaning to say I think that people can experience behavioral psychoenergetic possessions, soul snatching, soul swapping, even if you understand technology. The technology evolutions that are kind of on operation on people right now psychotronically. So people are going to have to be more open-minded, you folks. I mean, you know, I'm sorry that some of us have to look a little silly for a while others catch up, but you're going to be looking for us for help soon when this all starts to get really, really bad, because it's already happening and people are now just looking for reasons. And I'm just trying to offer you guys some, seriously. So please let me help you when, you know, before I'm being serious, guys. I'm not trying to be whatever. There's something nearly on the level of like the event in the film Ghostbusters with Dark Orgone Radiation. You know that scene at the end of Ghostbusters where all the shit flies around everywhere and there was a bunch of ghosts and demons everywhere? It's a little bit like that. Sorry to say it that way, guys, but that's kind of the reality of things. That's why things are so bizarre. Because what it is they've done the inverse of what, you know, would be like a love bomb. You could like send positive orgone radiation all across the entire world, like an implosion of it, you know, that nobody would notice, except they would just instantly feel just better and more co-creative and coexistent and peaceful. But no, they like to do the opposite and make us all stressed out and angry and fearful, and just then extract a bunch of energy from us. So that's why the Demon House article is relevant, because there does seem to be tangible data to support that that people did get possessed there, and that it's geographically significant to the location. So with that primer, I'm going to play this. I'm going to talk more about it afterwards. The Demon House that was discussed in Zach Bagans, the Ghost Adventures creators documentary called Demon House, and basically is this history that had a long past of demonic possessions. People like reported on it in mainstream news and things like that. Just had a bad history, and he decided to buy it sight unseen and do a documentary on, you know, what it was like. What, you know, he took some signal readings in there and things like that. So the whole story kind of fascinated me because you know, not everything about Ghost Adventures, like, you know, I think that my approach, I think personally, to like these types of issues would probably be to be, you know, quieter, I think, in the investigation, you know. But what I've always like sort of appreciated about what Ghost Adventures does is just their concentration on technicals and gathering data. So maybe the method isn't the way that I would do it, but I do appreciate how they introduced me to a lot of things involving, you know, scientific method, and introducing that into what they were doing with the paranormal, because that's really important to have more people doing that, you know, and explaining their techniques and things. So I think that what's great about the Demon House documentary is that they specifically bring, I can't remember his name, but they brought in somebody to do research there, and brought in a meter that measured the ELF signals inside the basement and everything. And I observed it, you know, it dropped down to 1 hertz, which would cause, you know, some pretty serious physical symptoms if you study these types of things involving, you know, EEG and you know, brainwave states and things like that. I mean, yeah, you could definitely tell that when you go down to their basement in that Demon House, something really changes energetically. So I think these are the types of things that we need to start focusing on, you know, applying some scientific method to. But see, so what Zach Bagans and that science, or that, you know, the guy who did the signal measurements were doing, that was great. You know, that introduced us to the concept of getting that signal measurement. But see, now there's an esoteric angle to it that, you know, maybe we haven't discovered yet. And so that's what I want to get into next. So I'm going to start a video here, and I'll be right back. So this is the Astoria column, and if you'll notice here, I drew a line at 33 degrees. I don't want to get too deep into it. You can look at my Secret Societies clip that I showed in the beginning of this presentation, and that gets in more detail on how to run these lines. But from the Astoria column in Astoria, Oregon, it's on the Washington-Oregon border. You basically will anchor it to the Astoria column. You line up your heading at 33 degrees, and if you notice, I did one at 213. I also do it at east and west line. You can do north and south if you want to, but for this presentation, I'm just focusing on those directions. And so, as you notice, I kind of go out south, rather northeast towards Seattle, Washington area. Then it lands in Bothell, Washington, where I've done a lot of my other presentations involving, you know, my childhood there and some of the connections I have to that neighborhood. So it's really interesting that that blue line pretty much goes right over my childhood home. I mean, literally, it's right there. That's where I was raised compared to that blue line. So, and then I did a lot of stories. My grandfather was at the end of the block there, had 2 homes. So anyways, that's another story. But yeah, I did some stories about this too. So kind of strange that it lines up perfectly with this, you know, part of my, you know, childhood and everything else like that at precisely 33 degrees, because that's a meaningful azimuth of Mason. So then if you follow this over to Richland, Washington, a place that has a lot of history with the Hanford Nuclear Reservation, they have a pretty, you know, historic Freemason lodge. up on the hilltop in Richland, Washington, just a few miles away from Hanford Nuclear Reservation. It also has very esoteric connections. Again, you line up the line at 33 degrees and 213 degrees. And I also did one that goes east and west too. So it's interesting that this Freemason Lodge lines up for me personally. It lines up to at the 33 degree line where I went to school and everything like that. But so yeah, you'll see that I kind of did like a 33 degree line and a 90 degree line here. And then if you kind of rotate the map though, and you split the difference between that 213 degree, 33 degree line, right, and the one that faces towards the Astoria column, it goes directly in between them. I did another article on this, and I talked about this in my Miles Johnston with the Basis Project interview just recently. It goes right to Stonehenge. It's a replica of Stonehenge. It was built by Sam Hill. He was kind of a Quaker legend out here in Washington and Oregon area. Built a lot of legendary monuments and things like that along the Washington-Oregon border. And it's beautiful out there. It's the Columbia River Gorge, but has a lot of significance. It's up on a hilltop. You can see there's the Stonehenge, right? So I just think this helps people, understand why mystic societies, people like the Freemasons, study these things. There's something to it. We can all kind of roll our eyes at it, but sometimes when you can assign numbers to it and it's very specific and it's consistent, you can do it over and over again. Like this, see, this Mason Lodge lines up perfectly with the farm we had, my schools, my elementary school, my junior high and high school there. So anyways, you follow that line 90 degrees over, right? I don't know if it's exactly 90, right? So it's kind of has the whatever. You have to draw the heading, then just keep running it as long for whatever. But you notice it lines up with the demon house perfectly. Well, not quite perfectly, but it's like nearly right on it within blocks. I mean, like you could walk to it from where the line is. It's pretty amazing, huh? So yeah, it's just things like that, if you start working with ley line, grid energy, map energy, start studying things involving Freemasons. And I'm not a Freemason, by the way. I've never joined her, and I've never been recruited or anything like that. I just studied some of the things involving angles and azimuth and excuse me, things like that. But yeah, check this out. This is where you get to at the demon house, and you can look at this in Google Earth and kind of zoom in on it. And this is the way I do a lot of my kind of esoteric map work. I guess you could say my research. It's not really work, it's just research that I do. And I follow these types of lines, and it's all, it's difficult to explain, but there's almost always real data correlations to it. So all I try to do is say, okay, I noticed that somebody on this energy line that I know to be relevant for energetics, he has experienced, these very low ELF ranges, and a lot of people claim that they experience quote unquote possessions. So I think that, especially on Halloween here, I think what this kind of demonstrates to us is that there is really a scientific bridge that we can cross here between the paranormal, some of these radio frequency principles and, things involving mystic societies like the Freemasons. There's something these people knew and studied as science, as what it was before, we were taught a lot of false sciences. So I think people just really need to open their minds up a little bit more to these things. And, if anybody wants to join me in that, I'm trying to just research these types of things and have some fun, but also get some answers to these things because I believe people. I've seen it. I think that you can have things where people can experience possessions, and there can be many reasons for it. And it's not always because of something that's faith-based or religion. It can have entirely to do with energy that's on a ley line or grid energy line. And if you start studying these things more intrinsically, you'll understand there's a real science to it, and it's nothing to be mocked or made fun of. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody on Halloween, and have a good time out there. Try not to hurt each other. Bye. All right, hang on here. Okay. All right. So that's I'm showing you that because I wanted you to understand from my perspective. Sorry about my You like these things? I'm wearing my cheap glasses because I need to glue some of my more expensive ones back together. My life is falling apart, including my glasses, guys. But you see, this is how I handle it. I laugh. I have to. It's too ridiculous. It's too ridiculous. And what we've got here, I'm just telling you guys, long term, what's going to happen as a result of this greater awareness is so freaking beautiful. It's unstoppable. And I really don't care how bad things are right now. I mean, it's ugly. I'm not going to lie. But again, this is where I'm going now. This is how I've trained my brain. I'm laughing to the point now where I'm worried that if I don't actually tell people that it's a lot worse than it is, they're just not going to take me seriously because I become so effective at laughing it off. I mean, really, it's getting that weird. So let me state that it is a serious situation at the moment, but yeah, this is how I'm dealing with it. Okay. Mostly just because I don't take any situation that seriously, because I just genuinely feel like what is happening right now with the awakening awareness of people in general, becoming hip to psychoenergetics, bioenergetics, and just getting a larger education overall, or just expanding their understanding of it, myself included. What this does to increase the intelligence of society, you know, exponentially, and it also increases our emotional intelligence as a society. We become more naturally empathic and empathetic, and in ways that aren't destructive to our individual selves, which can be a thing. I know that from personal experience. Sometimes I can be so caring that I neglect things for myself. I don't see the need to, you know, whatever, attend to those things. And so I'm trying to be conscientious about making sure that energetically that whatever I'm doing here, I'm really trying not to excessively, you know, I don't want this to be a sap for people. I want you to get something out of it at the end that makes you feel like you're prepared to handle what's going on out there better than before. And I don't want these sessions at all, the things that I do, to be, you know, 2.5+ hour long. You know, it all sucks, and this is why, and here's all the secrets revealed. Well, yeah, I want to spend a little bit of time deconstructing the quote, you know, the matrix that we're living in, if you want to call it that. But I don't like saying things like that because I feel like it doesn't make it serious enough what it is. It's mass resonance manipulation and structural psychology. It's weaponized mass as a group, a large group, resonance. What does that mean? I say it all the time, but maybe I should talk about that. What does mass resonance manipulation mean? Okay, resonance. What's the resonation of my voice right now? What's the patterning of it? What I just did there right now was something that manipulates resonance to get inside your head. Resonance. Sorry to do it to you guys. I didn't mean to annoy you, but I know that that's what it does. That's why I only did it a few times. Okay, take that, what I just did, add an amplitude of energy to it that adds a little bit of an electrical signal that'll shock your body, send it to a person's earlobe, and you've got Rogue Electronic Weapons 101. Now, that's extremely easy to do. Fill a person's room with a frequency and jam them. So why am I putting this big ugly chart up? What is this even about? Well, it's because I found this at a specific geographic location. So I would like you guys to know that my research is very much rooted in providing numbers and statistics and values and actual data to support that you may be experiencing an energy anomaly that's weaponized. I'm one of those few rare people that can do this in this country, guys, let alone the world. And that's willing to, and that puts me in a strange niche. You know, who knows they need a chart like this? You see my problem? Lots of people need this chart. They just don't know it. So I know how to make them, and I know how to create them and make them effective. This is one I did from personal experience. I'm not going to get into detail except to say that I'm in Nevada, and the only reason why I have any roots in Nevada at all is because there's people that I love in Nevada, and I care about them no matter what. I'll always love the people in Nevada no matter what. I don't care what goes on between us, what's in my head, what's in their head. There's a couple people that are out here that have my unconditional, undying love. Okay? So I want to talk to you about energy and locations and what I've learned from personal experience. This chart I measured, and there's a behavioral anomaly associated with it. And it's a strong energy system, and it can vibrate a person's body aggressively and pretty much make them submit to pretty much whatever you want. It's used on people in Southern California and in Nevada. It can be pumped into various neighborhoods and selectively piped into different houses. It can just shake a person out of resonance in such a way that they'll give up to whatever, or more often than not, if they don't know how to push back or fight it off, it'll give you cancer. It'll give you all kinds of things. I've done enough research on the energy signatures of it to know that it does have origins that lead back someplace. And in this particular case, it seems to go back to the Fontana region where I did all those zodiac reports. And from that area near Kaiser Steel extends underneath like Lake Arrowhead, Twin Peaks area, and then continues on kind of following pretty close to the Interstate 15 as it extends between the Inland Empire Valley, San Bernardino County area north. And it goes beyond that. It pretty much follows the highway and a whole series of solar arrays. This is when I got really, really hip to something that might be going on, where I think that solar power, although it does work and it's a thing and it's technically whatever, there does seem to be a little bit of manipulation within solar projects in America where, yeah, they're collecting and harvesting and harnessing solar and sun power, but they're also able to redirect energy in a thing called, I think, ionospheric bounce. And so this is pretty, these types of things really, if they're on US soil, we should kind of know about it, right? And I'm just telling you that this is why I try to get people to be like partners with me, because you understand what a challenging situation this is when you realize that what you're fighting has been used on the very base of people that you may rely upon for support. And that the perpetrators that understand it are as close to those people as you are. And this is my challenge, because these systems are really, really effective. I've been in this exact system. That's how I got this data. And let me explain to you what it does. You go to sleep, and then like a light switch, it aggressively tries to magnetically hemisphere separate your brain. You'll if you're lucky enough to fall asleep, this is how it's going to feel. It's going to feel like your brain is being kind of like yanked from two different sides, and you may wake up a little bit like this because of the way it affects your head. So when I say things like, maybe guys, don't make fun of somebody like a Britney Spears, this is why. Because these systems are all over LA, they're all over Nevada, they're all over California. They're in mansions, they're in low-income communities, they're in middle-class suburban areas. And they're surprisingly easy to expand and tap into and make miniature renditions of all over the place. And someone did this. Now, when I looked into it, it looked to me to be an infrastructure energy component that had very little to do with things that are above ground and a lot more to do with things that are below ground. to really get it going. Without the below ground component, it's nearly non-existent. So I know I said I was going to talk about maps, but I'm going to show you where this system is. In fact, that's what I should have been doing when I was explaining it to you. That chart, though, is literally the spectrum analysis that I personally took with my own spectrum analyzer while I was in the system. I'll put it back on the screen here really quick so I can give you a quick summary of what it means. But yeah, this happened to me. And so what I'm trying to explain to people a little bit is my challenge, folks, is that I haven't had the resources to do what I want to do. And I know people that are having this happen to them. And they're scared. Because whoever designs it is pretty freaking close to me. So, you know, not designed it maybe, but deployed it or whatever, had knowledge of it. And then I've been trying to go around to verify like where these things are. And I'm just telling you guys, like, you know, it's really kind of unusual to find indoors signals that are like neg 28 dBm that kind of are consistent with things that match this particle accelerator signal, the 972 megahertz particle accelerator. Now, I don't know that that's what this is, guys. Maybe these two figures have zero to do with the other. The only thing is that I'm also aware that underneath this location where I took this measurement is where I located that tunnel system, which I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you exactly where this system is, not where that exact measurement is, but I will say this, guys. That measurement lines up with the Manzanara Karate Kid location. That's what's freaking me out. Where I took the measurement literally lines up with a real life with a fiction. How do I say it? I took a real measurement of a real location only to learn that in the movie Karate Kid, they make reference to this place called the Manzanar camp. And that when you go out to the Manzanar camp, there's arrows within the infrastructure of the, you know, the way they built the whole place that point in different directions. So it piqued my curiosity, and I find out where do all these arrows point. They're at the Manzanar internment camp, and one of them points to where exactly where I took the measurement I just showed you. It points directly to the house. It doesn't get close to it, ladies and gentlemen. It goes straight to the backyard of the house where I took that measurement. From a movie that was made in 1986 or something like that, 1987. That really, how I found that connection is bizarre. Because it's not like the movie takes place in Manzanar or something like that. Karate Kid basically has a scene where Mr. Miyagi, he's crying because he's had a little bit too much to drink, and he's thinking about how his wife died while she was having his baby, and that it happened in this internment camp at Manzanar. So while he's drunk, he's you know, kind of reconstructing the whole thing in his mind because he doesn't want to just tell Daniel, you know, what happened to his wife. He's just too sad and he's drunk. So he just says, like, you know, like, yes, sir. You know, Miyagi reporting to duty. Kill many Germans. Report to duty. And he's like, you know, Mr. Miyagi, regret to inform you, wife has complications while having birth. And then he just starts breaking down, and it's just one of the worst. Like, it's such a sad, sad scene. I never processed it fully when I was younger, but it really hit me hard when I watched it last summer. And now every time I watch it, it's very powerful, you know. And I even see like how good Pat Morita was in that scene. Even actually, you know, I'll give a lot of credit even to Ralph Macchio on that one. They both did an excellent job with the acting. But it translates to a real thing. I mean, there was a Manzanar facility where this all happened. And so Daniel picks up the article, and that got me thinking, where is Manzanar? Is there a Manzanar? I haven't heard of that. because there's a similar story that happened at Tule Lake, because that was also a Japanese internment camp where the Nazis went in America. It also had the parallel of also at one time being a Japanese internment camp. And the fact that the one that's in Manzanar, there's this parallel story between this matching of the Japanese internment camps, the Nazi, they always call them German and Italian ones, but they were the point is, though, is that, you know, those camps were in both locations, you know. And so when I did the research on the Manzanar one, it has, because they held the Japanese there, there's a lot of the Japanese culture, if you're not familiar, you know, I'm sure many people here are, if you've ever been to a Japanese garden or something like that, you'll notice the concentration on lines as part of their, I mean, more so than a lot of other cultures, I would argue. They understand everything. They place the shapes, the spirals. They'll do the spiral. They'll create those sand gardens with the different lines and shapes and swirls and things like that. They'll have the very fine, they'll take the rake and make it perfect, all the lines across the way. I mean, there is such an artistry to the Japanese culture and a beauty to it that is just, I always feel the same way every time I visit a Japanese garden or a Chinese garden. I mean, the attention to detail, the symmetry, all with their own unique beauty across each different culture. I mean, you know, you know, a Japanese garden is significantly different than a Chinese garden. They're beautiful for their own ways. I wouldn't say completely different cultures, but they're significantly different cultures, even though they're both, I guess, Asian. But no, I mean, very, very different the way that all lays out and everything else like that. But I love them for very similar reasons. You know, it's the reason why I was trying to show you guys a lot of maps from a lot of these areas too, is it does, I don't know what it is. It does bring us closer, but the point was the Manzanar line, that the Japanese culture, like I said, they do a lot of the symmetry and the lines and angles. So at the Manzanar facility where they were camped out at, it was especially true there. And they built like this whole Japanese garden thing in the center of it where they had all the lines built up. And I took some energy readings in the Japanese garden. It's inside my report on my other channel. And, but I noticed that the whole place was very symmetric, and they did a whole lot of these like areas and sections and numbers and everything. And I'm like, wow, this does have a lot of things going on. Like, I really should investigate Manzanar deeper, way deeper, you know, on a much more significant scale, like spend a few days there, not just like, you know, 30, 45 minutes kind of thing. And anyways, when you get out to the main lot, the parking lot is shaped like triangles and goes in different lines. And so the one that's facing east goes out towards, you know, the other like Death Valley, and then it eventually winds up in Las Vegas. And then it eventually winds up in Las Vegas in the Henderson area, where I took that exact measurement of 972 megahertz signals that I actually felt vibrate my skull. That's exactly where it points to, folks. So I know we're existing in something right now involving timelines, involving some of these Hollywood studios and films, that it's going to get revealed very soon. We're on the cusp of when this technology evolution will actually be made known. And then everything's going to turn into a big chess game of, they're kind of turning our reality into a virtual reality that exists within reality. How else do I explain it to you guys? Once you're engaged in timeline manipulation, you really are effectively able to sort of like erase things as they happen, or just turn it into a more gamed environment. So what I've learned based on the information that I got is that things are just going to be the way they're going to be in effect. There's only so much things can be done to change things. It's not as Back to the Future, like you're going to get erased and lose your arms and your parents aren't going to exist. It's not like that. It's more just that, because people aren't really going between time, like you can't go year to year, is my understanding. The way it works is that you're able to send information from one timeline to another. This process is a combination. Look, There's different ways of doing it. There's computing, and there's human thing, and there's a human computing element to it, wherein the computing element to it cannot achieve what it does without the human element, meaning to say that it does involve like high level, like supercomputer, quantum computing type things, but it also is a human process that requires human fuel, which is bioplasma. It's what this aether is, and it's why there's become a much larger market economy for it that nobody will acknowledge. Why aren't they acknowledging it? Because, guys, somewhere somebody's using this on a more official scale in ways that they know is a little bit immoral. So here's the thing I'm appealing to those people on. Please don't do this. You don't have to do it this way, and I can get you a solution that'll free you from any excessive embarrassment beyond what you've been doing and get us on track to healing people, because you created some energy events, just like I told you with the Cloudbuster, that you may not be in control of right now. So I want you to know I'm not Joe Whistleblower as much as what I'm discussing as being something where I'm telling you that this is something that if we don't address it sooner than later, okay, if we don't address this in a way that's, how do I say it? If we don't address this problem in a way that's actually going to train people to sort of understand that what goes on event by event is being gained. It's being within certain groups of the population. They've learned that those who are Rh negative and O blood type, if you control their circumstance specifically, and these would be like a 3% contingency of the population, there's a certain percentage within even that group that they're looking for. It's a small percentage of an already small percentage. And that the Genome Project revealed this, the Human Genome Project. And so that all these people, probably don't need to have the map up anymore, but all these people that have this going on with them can experience a lot of people trying to control and manipulate their environment. And here's the thing that I had to have, I guess you could say, my own sympathy for the devil moment on. You can understand why, if they're left unattended, who's going to do it? You know, who's going to be doing things timeline wise with these people's resources, their human bioplasma, their brain, without either whether that person's conscious of it or not, right? You can see how these people would become sort of like market economy, sold, bought and sold, traded kind of people. Because it's a little bit like having real estate. You know, once you got it, you got it. Like if a person has a huge swath of land, they'd be wise to kind of hold on to it in case it, you know, increases in value, especially if it's near a place that's already kind of bustling, right? That's kind of the way that they perceive people and their genetics now relative to this blood group. They're trying to keep as many people controlled and on ice that have this. So it's like they can control timelines. They can control information back and forth. But my understanding is the way that they go about doing it, because it's a machine-based process, they require something that's on the spectrum of deadly orgone radiation, because it's a binary processor. It's a computer that operates using digital technology. It's slicing up analog waveforms to create digital compression through which to create its efficiency for computing. Now, computers need that. Computers are kind of like anti-life just by design. They're a hack into what human machines can already do, you know, person to person. So what I'm telling you guys is that positive orgone radiation is the pathway for humans to do something very similar based on timelines. Once you become aware and you're knowledgeable and you're getting the messaging and you're getting the verification that the messaging is occurring. I've had people inquire about that. How do you know? How would you know that it's real or fake? Well, that was my big conundrum, guys. When I experienced some strange things with timeline technology, I was like going, you could be using any number of things that I've done research on to be fucking with me right now. I am not listening to this. In fact, I think I'll go to a doctor before I'm going to believe it's even technology. That's kind of how I thought of it, guys, because I'm just in so much disbelief about what people can really do. I'm like, that's a bunch of voodoo you're trying to make me believe. Then when you actually experience something, you're like, okay, that definitely wasn't in my head. Well, it is, but it's not, right? Because you can associate a real-time tangible activity to it. When it gets deep, when they start verifying it for you in the real time. So meaning to say there's people that use looking glass that need you to know sometimes that they're actually using it. I'm going to warn you, you guys, just because somebody can use it doesn't mean you should trust them. You're going to have to just figure that out on your own. But I've had to learn my lessons. Sometimes these people are just not very trustworthy. And they use the technology and they're very effective at gaining your trust. But the whole point of them using it on you is to get you to self-destruct without knowing, that you think that you're doing something good or right or whatever. And then you wind up self-destructing. And then, it's like, hey, why did that person do that to themselves? Oh, they were hearing voices. So that's why I'm explaining to you guys, be careful. Like, don't just listen and say like, okay, I'll do that. I mean, that's dumb. I mean, I hope I don't have to say that to anybody, right, that might be experiencing timeline technology, but it can operate on a couple different principles. And so I think when you're experiencing more technology-based ones, it manifests in ways that are just way too precise. It's too calculated. It's too computer precision. You'll see the signs of it. You'll know. It'll present information to you in a way that's like really brute force and like downloads to you like way too fast, and you're like, well, too much, I can't handle this. I'm just a person, I'm not a machine. Whereas person to person communication, it really does tend to go through love pathways. When somebody's inspired by you, they're laughing at something that you did. That's kind of why I was talking earlier about the whole color coding and purple rain, guys. I think that what we're really experiencing right now is like, I've been kind of appealing to some people that have sort of the blue color ideology, because that's where I came from. And I'm not red necessarily today, but I understand the red side of this dynamic. And I was never really that blue to begin with, to where I think what it did was alchemically, it created the quote purple rain of understanding, where a lot of these people said like, wait a second, this is stupid. Like, I don't think any of these people are really telling us the truth. I think there is something to what he's saying here. And then I learned after a while that some of these people, like, I just need to inspire them more. I need to get them to understand that once we just clear some away these obstacles, that we're just going to live in such a beautiful world here, guys. Like, I'm not really wanting to stay focused on anything negative or anything like that. This technology, good things can be done with it. Positive things can be done with it. But yeah, guys, don't just accept everything out of hat like it's automatically happening, because there's just too many ways to achieve it. And I'll warn you about that. But it is a thing, okay? And whether it would be happening from an existing timeline or another one, again, guys, it's another thing to be thinking about. A way to get you to manifest something in today's timeline might be to tell you from today's timeline that they're from another one, to get you in a confidence game, to get you to do things you normally wouldn't do if they were talking to you from today, right? And sometimes this can manifest in a lot of different ways. So it's not always like something that's brain to brain. Sometimes they're just using little hacking ways of doing it to people and tricking them that way. That's why I make a lot of appeals to people to like not buy into too many of those deceptions that are going on out there, because some of them are designed to reel you into doing destructive things, And so this audience here is pretty intelligent, so I don't think that I don't have to worry about them, but yeah. Overall. So anyways, we're getting pretty close to closing up here and everything like that. So I just wanted you to know, I really do appreciate, everybody joining, and just think about, I'll put a link maybe in the description, but Yuvarov's article on the mechanics of negative energy is really good to read. I'll put an article probably in the description section afterwards here, so you can find it maybe in an hour or so if you go into that. And you might want to read that to learn more about technology-based mechanics of negative energy and things like that, because that really helped me understand things better at a more scientific level with data to support it. And you know, once you understand that part, this whole thing I'm telling you about, like negative energy as psychoenergetic biofuel and bioenergetic manipulation to achieve fuel from humans, how that human fuel interacts with quantum computing, looking glass technology begins to make more sense. So, anyways, guys, I wasn't going to get into timeline things tonight, but there you go. I do appreciate you joining, though, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. Good night.